Okay, now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest, Mr. Vola Francis, Percy Vola Francis, King of Junkanoo. So he has everything here that represents all his resplendent regalia, which represents the kingship of his title that he's been wearing for many, many years. Just about everybody in the Bahamas knows him, and of course he's very affiliated with the Junkanoo, as well as with the youth and the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture. He's really a cultural icon in our country. We appreciate him. He's been around the world, just exporting Junkanoo and letting people know about the wonderful culture that we have and our foremost entertainment in the Bahamas, the national entertainment, Junkanoo. And so without further ado, I'd like to call him. We are taping, so we just ask you to be quiet, and of course we'd like to share this with everyone around the world. Thank you very much. So let's welcome Percy Vola Francis, King of Junkanoo.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Andrea and I grew up together, firstly in the Masons Edition area, and then they moved into the quaint and eloquent Centerville, where I went to school with her brother Ray and I, Lana, etc. The Mudding family and I are very, very close, and I'm delighted to be here this afternoon. This evening, I have been in Junkanoo now for many years. I started out at a very, very early age in the area of Mason's Edition, where we first started our little group. We didn't have a name at the time. So we called ourselves the Masons Edition Boys. And that was in 1962 when we got together and decided that we were going to go to Bay Street. So tonight I have the opportunity to tell you about the things that have changed in Junkanoo since I came in and up to now. I'll be celebrating my 70th birthday next March. 70 years old. Used to be old one time ago. It's not old anymore, as you can see. So I take a delight. I go to the senior line when I go to the bank. I know some people don't do that because they don't want people to know how old they are. But I go to the senior line, and that's a privilege. All right? So tonight I am privileged to be here to share with you some of my experiences on how Junkanoo has evolved, and it's continuously evolving. The world of Junkanoo is continuously evolving. I mean, every day, every year, there is this change. But there's a saying that says, the more things change, the more they remain the same. Now, I don't know about that, but that's just to say. Firstly, Junkanoo was the name that was applied to this festival. Junkanoo. And they have this imagery of him. I don't have any pictures of him. I need to do all of that. But he's believed to come out of West Africa and brought to the New World. Like, for example, my brother here, he came out of Barbados via Britain. And so, these kind of things happen. So in that case, coming out of Africa was Junkanoo. And, it's so funny, if I say something to you, Mr. Cameraman, and by the time it gets to him, right, there's a different feeling. It's not what I said to you by the time it gets to him. And so what had happened was, because of how we speak and our dialects and all that, Junkanoo, we say Junkanoo. Okay? So that was the first change. The spelling changed, everything changed, because we spell the way we hear it, or the way it's pronounced, that's the way we spell it. And so we ended up spelling Junkanoo as J-U-N-K-A-N-O as Junkanoo. All right? And so with this origin from Africa, right? This is only what people say now, because we don't really know for sure where actually this whole thing come from. This is only what is believed, right? And I've read many, many stories. I've read stories about us having connections with the Indians, that is, the Aztecs, the Mayans, and so on, the Tinos, the Arawaks, the Lucayans, and so on. But Africa is really what we call our motherland. So this culture now has become a phenomenon in very, very vast proportions. During the past 100 years, Junkanoo has gone through many stages and can be described as the freest form of expression. Any of you who've ever rushed before will know that you'll end up doing any kind of thing when you hear Junkanoo music. You'll just move to whatever your body tells you. So it's a free form. You understand? You will see him tapping his feet, and he wouldn't even be conscious. You know? But that's the way it goes. And so this now is now a symbol of national identity, celebrated by all classes and all ethnicities. It transcends, Junkanoo transcends social, economic, racial, and religious boundaries. The traditions and the values of this unique art form are still evolving, incorporating elements of everyday life that make it difficult for any behemoth to escape the spirit of Junkanoo. The spirit of Junkanoo is something that you cannot escape. And I can attest that once you are bitten by a Junkanoo mosquito, or a Junkanoo bug, or whatever you call it, that obsession takes place, and you find yourself just swamped by it. And so, I could tell some of you ain't get bitten by the bug. I can see it on your faces. But I surely have been bitten by the bug. They've come from stilt walking, mask wearing. Of course, you know the mask is always a form of trying to hide something. You know, you don't want people to know who you are. And traditionally, that's what Junkanoo was about, especially in the old days. I got some pictures I'll show you as I go along, show you how much this has changed. And so I looked up a word one day, and the word is in the dictionary. It's called Junkanoo. Junkanoo. If you want to, you could look it up. Inconnu, or something like that. Which really means masked man. Okay? Now, Junkanoo is believed to be a French word. But see how close it is to Junkanoo. You see what I'm saying? And so I try to put all of these things together to try to analyze where this thing actually came from. So we had costumes that were made of croco sacks, satins, flower bags. You know, I was born in the corner of Market Street, and it's McPherson Street. It's right off Market Street, just below the hill coming down from the arch. And there's the bakery, the Purity Bakery, through there. So because I was born through there, I thought I had a right to every flower bag or every flower sack, right, that they threw out, because, you know, they had the 55-pound sack bags. And so we'll take the sack bags, and we'll wash them, and then we'll make a hole in the corner of it and put a shirt sleeve on it. And that's how we actually started with our pasting. So that's how our shirts were. And we call them sacks, because that's what they were. Sacks, flower sacks. From paper mache to stuffed pantaloons, that is, pants being stuffed with whatever. You have your pants that you want to stuff it with. I don't know, whatever you want, rags or paper or what have you. And of course, there were very, very tall steeple hats in Junkanoo. Tall. Very tall. I mean, as high as the ceiling. I don't know how they used to manage to carry them, but that's how they were. And so we had these costumes with a tremendous height. And also there were clowns, there were clown hats. Our fringe was very broad and very, very long. Any of you could remember? No. And then there was the traditional red, white, and blue colors that represented royalty and majesty. Because what happened was, in it must have been around 1952 or 53 when Elizabeth was crowned. Was it 52 or 53?
52.
I think it was 52?
I think so.
52. When Elizabeth had the coronation, everything in the Bahamas was red, white, and blue. And I'm sure everything around the Commonwealth was red, white, and blue as well. So the Union Jack with red, white, and blue was all over the place. As kids, I used to go to school right up here by the Tribune. And, you know, we'd come home and we were waving our flags and all that. So those colors transcended into Junkanoo. And so every single group that came to Bay Street, their costumes were red, white, and blue. Okay? Very significant, isn't it? But what happened over the years was that since 52 to about 57, the colors began to change. The greens began to come in, yellows began to come in, pinks and purples, and all these other colors began to come into Junkanoo. Mind you, there were no set themes. There were no set themes. People just pasted their stripes, real broad stripes, and of course they made the hat with the torsos, the cone hats. It was one single one at the beginning, and then after time went by, they started to go to 3, and then to 5, and then to 7, and so cones were the order of the day. Then costumes were pasted with newspaper. You know, you go to the Tribune or whatever, or you know, people used to buy paper. Well, that's the way we got our news anyway. We got our news through the Tribune or through the Guardian. And so the newspaper was used as a means of pasting. So you would shred that up, and then you would paste on an old pants or shirt, and that's the way you came to Bay Street. Economic Times kind of expressed the era. Okay. Now, on Saturdays, the newspaper would have what they call the funny paper, the funnies. All right, all the little cartoons and all that. Now that came in color. So that was only on every Saturday. So what you had to do is if you wanted your costume to have a little color, then you'll have to start collecting those. So every weekend you'll have to collect those papers, and then you'll stock them up. And that was a means of adding some color to your costumes. All right. We saw the introduction of sponge costumes. You know what I should do? I didn't want to do this yet. Andre, you want to help me with this? I didn't want to move away from the camera, but there is a sponge costume in there that I need you to take out for me, so we could look at some of the costumes that actually were happening as we went along through the years. So the sponge actually came from the sponging era. We had a sponge industry here in the Bahamas, and as a result of that, we had so much sponge. They said, well, seeing that the sponge knocking around, we could take this sponge and then we make costumes out of it. And so we just took each piece and we just sort of sewed them all up together, and we had the sponge hats and all that. So that's basically what a sponge costume would look like back in the day. All right.